Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming today. We had an intentional and productive offseason that we're excited about. I feel like from a roster standpoint, we were able to address some goals, getting a starting center, which was something that we felt like was very important, adding a couple really good wings in terms of 3 and D wings, Jake LaRavia and Marcus Smart. Clearly getting an extension done with Luca. In addition, having LeBron choose another year with the Lakers as opposed to entering free agency, all positive and productive things for us as a basketball team. And in addition to that, too, recently extending JJ's contract just to make it clear that he's, the basketball leader in terms of our coaching and on-court performance. So lots of business done in the off-season. Of course, now the games will begin next month. Training camp gets going, obviously, next week. So just wanted to welcome everyone here. We're excited about the season, excited to work with you guys as partners, and here to answer questions, both JJ and I.
Jim Hill, CBS 2, KCAL 9. First of all, congratulations. Good luck this year. With everything that you have done and all the wonderful moves that you've made in the offseason up until today, how much pressure is on this team to win it all? Is the pressure more than it has been before?
Yeah, I think JJ and I are both so much about process, and we had a process. We were very methodical with what we wanted to accomplish in the offseason, and now we're going to dive into the process of having this team come together and be a great team. That starts on Monday with our first team meeting. So that's where we're going to really put our attention and focus, is into the process of making this team great and starting by coming together as a group on Monday.
Yeah, I would just add. It's on. I would just add that I think there's always pressure with the Lakers. You come into this building every day, and you're constantly reminded of what Lakers excellence is. So that doesn't change, for me at least, year to year. Thank you. That doesn't change for me at least year to year. The other part of what people probably would consider the outside pressure of trying to win, I think you have to look at your own internal standards. And I feel like we set those standards last year. This summer was a very productive summer for not only myself as a coach, but my entire coaching staff. I intentionally created an environment for my young coaches, for Bo Levesque and Lindsey Harding and Ty Abbott and Michael Wexler, all of them to have opportunities to grow, whether that was in pre-draft workouts, summer league, what we've done in the gym the last 2 months. And the guys are players that have been in the gym every day since mid-August, getting ready for training camp. It's the work they put in. That's the standard that we've set here. It's the standard that we're trying to live up to. It's constant. It's no different year to year, day to day when you're a Laker.
Hey, one for both of you. If we could start with Rob, just thinking about the summer with Luca and the extension, and then I know you guys were able to fly over to Poland to see a game and to see him. How did that inform you, sort of about where he's at, where the team's at, how you build into the future with him, and of course, especially for starting this season?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with Luca's accomplishments with Eurobasket. I think the thing that probably stood out among many things for me is just being able to go and spend some time at practices with his national team, and obviously going to the game as well. But just his overall leadership tone and how he not only led by example, but he was very demonstrative in the practice in terms of his expectations of the team, how they played, their togetherness. And I think just seeing that continued evolution and growth with him is not only a leader by example, but a leader with his voice, really stood out to me. And I think it's something that's going to carry into camp this year.
And then, JJ, just coming off of your first year, and I know last summer was kind of chaotic and going right from broadcasting, and all of a sudden you're the head coach. What did you think about? Are there an item or two with all of this time that has stood out to you the most as you go into year two as a head coach?
I thought about a lot of things. You certainly reflect on the previous season, both successes and failures, and you do a lot of self-assessment, and that was really where I spent a lot of the first probably 4 to 6 weeks was on sort of self-assessment. But I would say the two words that immediately, when you ask that question, pop into my mind are philosophy and methodology. The philosophy of how we want to play, the methodology as a coach of how I want to teach that. And so that's where I spent a lot of time this summer.
Good to see you both. Hey, Rob. This is going to be LeBron's 8th season with the Lakers. It's going to be the first time he's in a contract year. How does that affect your team building process as you not only have to take into account this year's roster, but the optionality of the team for years to come?
Yeah, I think we've talked before. The first thing we want to do in terms of LeBron and his future is just give him absolute respect to choose his story with his family in terms of how many years he's going to continue to play. He's earned that right, and he's the best one to talk about that in terms of how many years he'd like to play. But we were very intentional this summer in terms of the pieces we add with Luca and LeBron once LeBron opted in, making sure that they had the necessary pieces around them to be on a really competitive, strong team. And we built into that and for that. In terms of the future, obviously, again, with what I started your question with, first things first would be for him to be able to make the decisions he wants to in terms of how long he wants to play. And we're going to continue to honor and respect that and let him speak into that.
You kind of answered that. I just want to put a point on it, though. If he was interested in extending beyond this year, are the Lakers interested in having LeBron James as part of the team?
Yeah, I think I've said before in a previous question, we would love if LeBron's story would be to retire as a Laker. That'd be a positive story.
And one for JJ, congratulations on the extension. I'm just curious, your comments on having that vote of confidence from the organization entering into your second year as head coach.
Yeah, Rob and I, we have a lot of the same philosophies on life, and one of the words we always talk about is gratitude. And so I think it starts with just a high level of gratitude to the Lakers, to Mark, Jeannie, and Rob for having that confidence in me. And it's not lost on me the sort of rarity of a first-time head coach getting an extension. Like, I recognize how fortunate I am to be with an organization that supports me that way.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to both of you. Rob, along those lines, why now for an extension? JJ had a bunch of years left on his deal. Why was it important now to extend that vote?
Confidence and belief. We think he's a special coach with a special voice that's really helping us to continue to define the culture of Lakers excellence, and which just wanted to make a clear statement that this is what we believe in, what we're going to lean into, and what our players are going to mold into as we continue to develop the identity. I think having long-term planning is helpful as we build this team and go forward.
And then as just sort of a matter of procedures, will you have access to all your players here at the start of training camp? Is anybody dealing with anything in terms of injuries that won't be available as you guys start next week?
Yeah, so the players, as you know, they're going through their preseason physical process as we speak. So that's probably a question best answered on the other side of those. But right now we're feeling good about our group and guys' readiness to play.
JJ, for you, I'm curious, having the offseason, what have you kind of thought about in terms of LeBron and Luca and Austin, kind of working those three together? You guys had to do it really on the fly last year. How did time aid in kind of your ability to sort of chart that out?
I think the word I would use would be share. I think in a team sport, you have no choice but to share the basketball, share the spotlight. I think all three of those guys have a ton of respect for each other's skill sets and each other's abilities. one of the takeaways, I met with Sean McVay in May, a few weeks after the season ended, and spent the whole day with the Rams, and I got about 3 hours alone with Sean, and we were picking each other's brains, and it was very helpful. But one of the takeaways from that was utility plays. That's something that is a football term, and I think every basketball team has those utility plays. And so it's the utility plays are plays where all three of those guys feel involved in some capacity, and they're sharing the court together.
Duke to win with the LA Times. JJ, following up on what you said earlier about philosophy and methodology, what were kind of your takeaways of where you are as a coach early in your career in terms of those two things, philosophy and methodology?
Philosophy, I think it's just continued growth for how I want this team to play. And I want to be clear, that's not how I want to play. Like, a job as a coach is to figure out what is best for the group. And I think methodology, that was a lot in the self-assessment, and then a lot in talking with Sean McVay, spending some time with Tom Brady this summer. It was about figuring out what's the best way. How did Belichick do this? How does Sean do this? Obviously talked to a ton of NBA coaches, was fortunate to spend 2 days in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and picked a bunch of coaches' brains on some things. So again, it's really just about continued growth for myself, for my staff, and I feel like we all are in a good place to serve this basketball team and our players.
How did those connections start with Sean McVay and Tom Brady? Were those new this season, or have you done something similar before?
So prior to being hired by the Lakers, I spent a lot of time with coaches, and Sean was one of those guys outside of basketball that I developed a relationship with. Very close friends with Andrew Whitworth, so Whit hooked us up and talked with him a bunch. We wanted to get together prior to last season, but moving and getting the kids in school, we didn't find a day. So feel lucky I got to do that with him.
Rob, JJ, thanks for the time. Rob, I want to start with you. Dave mentioned LeBron obviously could be a free agent after the season expiring contract. Over half your roster could be free agents by next summer. Just wondering, how do you, and you've mentioned the flexibility, that being a priority, how do you anticipate that playing out? I guess what are the hopes of that dynamic going into training camp, going into the season, and how that plays out with so much flexibility and, guys,
I think the key is, I like the word optionality better, I think, than flexibility. I think we've all seen the impact that this new NBA CBA system, or relatively new system, has had on teams. And one of the things that's really hard is if you get trapped above the aprons, over the aprons, deep into them, you lose your optionality. And we, again, have been very disciplined and intentional on how we put the roster and cap together to lean into that optionality. Now, that said, I don't see optionality as a word that applies to the distant long-term future. That optionality could be now. It could be if there is a move to be made, we have the optionality to look at it, study it, and decide if it helps our team. That said, JJ and I have a high level of confidence in this group. And I think early in the season, we're going to get a sense of where some of the needs might arise. I think as a general rule, we've talked before, you like 20, 25 games to kind of see what the makeup of your team looks like and see where it's at, and then you start evaluating those roster moves. But we feel good about the optionality. At the same time, we really like a lot of the players that are on short-term contracts, and you could use that optionality to keep those players as well. So we'll continue to evaluate.
And then JJ, for you, going into training camp last year, you had determined and revealed the starting lineup going into the season. I was wondering if you made the same determination this season or going to this season, and if so, if you'd be willing to share it.
I haven't spent that. It's not that important to me. I haven't spent a ton of time thinking about it. We certainly have a number of players, you call it 7 or 8, that are starter level players in the NBA. I do know this. I did say that last year. And that starting lineup started 8 games together to start the season, and we started 24 lineups throughout the year. So not going to spend too much time banging my head against a wall on that before we have a practice.
Hey, Rob and JJ. When you guys first acquired Luca, obviously there was a lot of shock that transformed to determination and maybe even defiance now. Over the past couple of months with him, what have you learned about him during that metamorphosis?
I think probably the word that stands out to me the most is genuine. He's just an incredibly genuine person, and the fact that he displayed to all of us right here when he first got traded a sense of shock just shows that there's nothing fake or pretend, about him. He's just a genuine guy, and I think that helps. That's a great leadership quality when people feel like they really know your heart and what you think and your beliefs. And so the more time you spend with Luca, the more genuine and impactful he is. So that was something that really developed with our touch points over the offseason.
Hi, guys. Gerard Moncure from Fox 11. With Luca's extension, which obviously when you acquired him, we all knew that was the goal. LeBron is still here and might be here in the future. I'm just curious, have there been any conversations between you guys and LeBron about the transition that we are seeing taking place from this kind of going from LeBron's team to Luca's team?
Yeah, I mean, I can handle that. I mean, I talked to LeBron fairly frequently and had two great in-person meetings with him. One, he finally made it out to the Hamptons, so he and I had dinner in Sag Harbor right around free agency, and then was able to spend some time with him here in LA a couple weeks ago, and I came away from that thinking that he's in a great spot mentally, and know he's going to give us his absolute best.
Hey, JJ. Over here. Hi. I know that you spent time with skinny Luca when he signed his contract. But we saw such a huge change with Nikola Jokic around 2020, where he really just changed all his eating habits, he changed his diet, and he's been able to maintain that since, and it really rocketed him to the position he's in. What do you expect now that Luca has talked about how he's transformed his body? What do you expect him be able to do on the court differently and contribute to the team in a different way this season? And how much of a sense do you get about how long-term this is for him?
I get the sense from talking to him all summer, spending time with him, not only just here, but at the Backstreet Boys, that this is his life now. This is his routine. This is just a daily commitment to the new standard that he's set for himself. His excitement level, not just in what he hopes the season will be, but his excitement level in embracing this new standard was very high. Every time I've talked to him, when I saw him in Vegas, and then you see him play in Eurobasket, and he's moving better, he's defending, like all the things that you saw at the end of last year, where the layoff from the calf injury, whatever emotions he was going through post-trade, like it had an effect on him. So again, it goes back to what I just said about LeBron. I expect the best version of Luca, and it's my job as a coach to bring that out on a daily basis. Well, I would say this: we've asked all our guys to be in championship shape, and not starting on Tuesday. And so the commitment level across the board from our team has been very high this summer. We've had organized workouts. The guys have played pickup nearly every day. We've added conditioning at the end. They've all been committed to it. I think for me, that's probably the biggest thing. It's not a basketball thing that he can or can't do. It's just all of us being in elite shape.
Hey guys, good to see you. Rob, to start with you, earlier in the summer there was some reporting around you guys being more forward looking with how you wanted to build the roster and the contracts, and obviously you just spoke to having that optionality and potentially making a move sooner. There's a recent report about you guys potentially kind of pivoting post Luca extending and just spending some time with him and kind of him showing that it was worth potentially investing more in this roster. So if that is true, can you speak to just the process of kind of where maybe you guys were earlier in the offseason compared to where you are now?
Yeah, I think some of the words you used are maybe create a narrative. For us, the goal is the same as always. It's to build a championship team. And so I don't think there has been a pivot or a shift. I think that we were locked into getting to a place of optionality so we could address things both now or keep that optionality for the future. But the goal remains the same, is to put Lakers players on the court that can try to win this team a championship. And that's what we're committed to. And we feel like we have the optionality that if we're not seeing that in the first 20 to 25 games, that we can look to make moves to meet that goal.
And then JJ, schematically, what just with the new pieces, adding in DeAndre and Marcus and Jake, what are some of the changes or refinements that you're thinking about on both sides of the ball?
Well, hopefully you'll find out in the preseason.
Hey, Rob and JJ. With what you're talking about with the roster you assembled this summer, what ways do you think this current group can make things relatively easier for LeBron and Luca?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit to it and then let JJ address this. I mean, first and foremost, having a true center that is both great in the short roll when you have DeAndre Ayton in pick and rolls with Austin Reeves, Luca, and LeBron. His ability to catch passes in the short roll, we've already seen some of that in sort of the player workouts that have been going on. He's also a lob threat. So just adding that dimension, his size is very real. And then we know that LeBron and Luca both have thrived with players that have that 3-and-D component. We felt like Jake LaRavia is a young player that is really good now and has a lot of growth left in him. And then Marcus Smart has proven to be an elite 3-and-D player at different points of his career. And our sports performance staff is working really hard with him to make sure he gets back to that form. It was just a couple seasons ago, I think he won Defensive Player of the Year. So there's still a lot to be excited about with adding him.
I mean, Rob covered most of it there. I think just touching for me a little bit on Jake, who didn't have his option picked up as a rookie for his fourth year. So probably unexpected that he ends up being a free agent this time a year or two ago. And so to get a young player in free agency for a team that is trying to win a championship, it's an incredible opportunity for myself and our player development department to have him continue to grow. I'm very high on him. His level of commitment to what we've asked of the guys this offseason has been very high. And obviously played against Marcus, played against DeAndre. Marcus and I had many battles, 13 stitches over my left eye one time. Played him in the playoffs. I know what I'm getting out of Marcus on a daily basis, so really excited to have him as part of our group. And DeAndre's been here the last couple weeks playing with the guys, and just super impressed by his size, his agility, his hands. I think he's going to make a wonderful pick-and-roll partner for Luca.
Hey, guys. JJ, I guess I'm wondering, through your conversations this offseason pertaining to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, what's required to reach that level of greatness and success?
It's actually very simple, just a daily commitment. And so, I'll share this with you guys. My team, they already know this because that's all I've talked about all summer. But, we're going to ask of guys to be in championship shape, have championship communication, and championship habits. And that's a daily commitment to that. Our guys this summer have been awesome. I know LeBron is always committed to those things. Luca's been committed. So that's, to me, that's what it is. It's a daily commitment. And Saban has this thing. It's don't tell me, show me. And so That's what we're asking of our players.
Guys, Law Murray at The Athletic. Good to see you guys. So this time a year ago, you had D'Angelo Russell at point guard, Anthony Davis at center. Now you have Luca Doncic at point guard, if you want to use those positions, and DeAndre Ayton at center. So for JJ, from utilizing the pieces standpoint, Rob, the roster fit standpoint, like how do you kind of assess the similarities and differences of how you feel about those positions today versus where you were this time a year ago?
Are you asking me to compare players?
Compare like just the preparation that you have given the players that you have.
Yeah, I go back to the philosophy of how do I want this team to play? How do I put this team in the best position? My staff and I, we were talking the other day just about, our early offense formations and what best fit last year's group, versus what is going to best fit this year's group. And so you are constantly sort of evaluating those things. With DeAndre, it's like, all right, what are the quick hitters we use for AD, to get him an easy bucket here and there, or to get him a touch. So you certainly feel good. I felt really good about our roster coming into last season. I feel good again.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question on each of you. And first for JJ, do you see anything different from Rui compared to last season?
I would describe Rui as a joy to be around every day. And that joy is almost always there. And what I've seen just in the last few weeks, just a higher and higher level of confidence. And I think you still have to look at him as a young player in this league. And I think for any young player, as your confidence grows, your joy grows, your production and output grows. So, again, it's small, nuanced things, but Rui's playing with a lot of confidence. He's carrying himself with a lot of confidence, and it has been and is just an absolute pleasure to coach.
And for Rob, you already talked about the player's expiring contract. And what do you think Rui's future looks like with the Lakers?
Yeah, like JJ said, just seeing his growth from the time we traded for him, it feels like every season he's just gotten a little better at something. And just being around in the last couple of weeks, you can tell there's a confidence in his spirit and a comfortability with this place and JJ and his staff. It just exudes out of Rui. So I think this year is going to be another jump up for him, and he's a really, really important player for our team.
Hey, JJ. Obviously, getting DeAndre in the offseason was a big acquisition. Just would love to hear you just expand on how important of a role he's going to have, how critical he's going to be to this team, and just what some of your expectations are for him as the season begins.
His expectations are no different than any other player. I'll just say that. Again, it goes back to the daily commitment to those three things. This is a guy who was a #1 pick, who has produced in every sort of situation he's been in, whether that's been early in his career, post Chris Paul trade. Like he's played in the NBA Finals, been the anchor of a defense and a starter on an NBA Finals team. So I think even just being in the gym with him the last couple weeks, this guy played pick and roll with Chris Paul. Like there's not a more detail-oriented player. Like his feel for two-man action is just super high, and really excited to see him play with Luca.
Hi. So you mentioned that you know what you're going to get out of Marcus. What's the hope for what he's going to add to this team?
I would say toughness. I've already told him this, like we need his voice. That's part of communication. His competitive spirit, and defensively, he, it probably went a little bit under the radar because of the last 2 years, but he still grades out in nearly every metric in 80th percentile or higher, so he's still a very versatile defender. And to me, he's always been a little bit of an underrated playmaker. I think with Austin and Luca, those guys are obviously going to be primary ball handlers for us, but Marcus can be that secondary ball handler.
Hey, right over here, Jordan. Wanted to ask you about Austin Reeves, a person who has been extremely low profile every single summer, but he's in here every single night, every single day, and just the way he's improved his game every single season, and some things that you've seen about him, because I know a lot of times during the summer he's very low key, but I know he's been in the lab probably more than anybody too.
I mean, when he's not on the golf course. A guy shot a 65 this summer. Make sure you ask him about that on Tuesday. It's been a constant comment from our staff. He's been the best. Every day he's been in the gym, he's been the best player in the gym. But I see, again, this goes back to last May, all summer. His body is really good right now. Like, he's really strong. His burst, his athleticism, it's evident that he spent a lot of time working on his body this summer.
Rob, last year at this time you mentioned a willingness to trade your first-round pick if it brought a sustainable Lakers excellence. Obviously, that happened with the acquisition of Luca. Is that still the kind of player that's required for a first-round pick to be traded away, or has the market or needs on the roster changed that?
I think I would just say it again. If a transaction comes to us that leads to sustained Lakers excellence and puts us in a position to increase our odds of winning a championship, we would put future draft capital in to make that move.
JJ, in looking back at the things you learned during your first season coaching, were there elements like pacing yourself through an entire season, emotionally, spiritually, when to figure out the proper time to change, like sort of long view type things that you learned?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to one of the earlier questions where I talked about that first 4 to 6 weeks. That was like, my second interview during the NBA Finals with RP. The last question he asked me, he said, "All right, well, if Boston wins tonight, and I offer you the job, are you ready to get to work?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, of course." So I come off literally the busiest year of my life and go right into this. Hire 17 people, then right into the season. And obviously the season is a lot. It's a lot for a player, coach, it's a lot for Rob, it's a lot for fans. Like, it's a lot. So I really used those 4 to 6 weeks to do a lot of self-assessing, spent a lot of time talking with my performance coach. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff I learned. And some of that is finding the balance of my own sort of competitive edge with what the situation requires. I'll give you an example. And I told some of you guys after the season, I'm on a game day. I'm not going to turn off. And I've got to have the ability when I come talk to you guys to turn off.
JJ, this may seem a little awkward or off the wall, but coaching guys that you've played with, how does that work? I mean, is there any awkwardness at first? Do you guys kind of fit into the roles right away? I mean, how does that work anyway?
It's actually, I've never been asked that before. Not awkwardness. I, as a player, had the same interest in people that I have as a coach. So my ability to care about people and develop relationships with people, that hasn't changed. And so if a player played with me, they know that's how I am. And so it's actually the opposite of awkward, to be honest with you. It's actually very natural.
One quick one and kind of a bigger picture question for both of you, Rob. In regards to Rui, he is extension eligible, and he's been a very good player for you guys since you acquired him. Have you guys had any extension conversations, and how does that sort of fit in with the optionality that you're also trying to create?
Yeah, so I think the best thing to say is we feel strongly about Rui and we don't make it a practice when we're in discussions with someone on a contract to talk about it. So I'll just kind of leave that one to the side.
And then big picture, JJ, you mentioned Mark Walter's name. We haven't really talked about that yet. It's a pretty big thing that happened in this organization this summer. How has that affected day to day for you guys? I know the sale has not closed yet, but just curiously, how has that affected kind of the way that you guys have done your jobs here since that happened in June or whenever?
Mark's an incredibly exciting leader. And as you said, the transaction's still in process. But one thing that's clear about Mark is he has a strong level of belief in the operations of this place, and led by Jeannie Buss, and part of our future will be continue to be led by her with the day-to-day operations. But Mark is just an incredible resource and visionary, and I don't see there being big changes.
Hey, JJ. Dalton is a guy that you guys were really high on when you drafted him. Admittedly, a weird end to last season, weird summer league. What have your conversations been like with him this offseason, or what have you seen from him in the gym that makes you confident that he could get back to the guy he was at the beginning of last season?
Dalton's in a really good spot right now. I've had a number of conversations with him throughout the summer. They've all been very positive. I really believe this. The guy did too much after the season, and I think in summer league he was burnt out. He was coming in here at 5 a.m., getting shots up, then doing 2 workouts with our summer league staff and in the weight room. We had our last conditioning run of the preseason today, and he beat everybody by a long way. He's in phenomenal shape. He's in a great spot mentally. He's played well throughout September.
Thanks, everyone. Everyone good?
Thank you.